Hello, and welcome to When Grooms Get Engaged, the podcast about a guy's perspective to wedding planning from two guys that are currently trying to survive their own. I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris. And each week we will talk about how we navigated a different part of the wedding planning journey, what we learned in the process, and what maybe we had wished we had done differently. So, Steve, will you be my best man?
My God, Chris, I've been waiting for this. I knew it was coming. I've been planning your bachelor party since years ago. Ready to send out that email. Let's go. But yes, Chris, today we're going to talk about, best men, bridal party, and just general things for family members to do. Because as wedding starts kicking off, there will be people that are asking and expecting to be part of the wedding in some way.
There are a lot of politics behind these decisions.
Yes. Politics, respect, and also just honestly, these are people that you appreciate in your life that you do want to be part of your day. So Chris, when you guys started this, did you kind of have an idea of, if you even wanted a bridal party?
Yeah. I don't think I ever had in my mind, I've been a part of some weddings. I've seen other weddings where the bridal party is huge, like it's 7, 8, 10 people. I think that's maybe a little bit less common nowadays. But I've definitely seen it. So, sometimes you have a lot of people that you want to incorporate into the wedding, right? And so I think it's definitely an important discussion with your partner because they also have to have roughly the same number of people on their side. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be 1 for 1, but the number should be fairly close. And so I guess you have to start there, right? Like how many people from each side do you want to include in the bridal party? What were your discussions?
So I know going in, neither of us really wanted a bridal party. I know my issue is that if I was going to go into the bridal party, I would need like at least 10 guys up there. Honestly, realistically, I could go to 15 if like I could extend it. And then you start getting into like who to ask, who to not ask. If you ask this guy, you got to ask that guy.
Mm-hmm.
How many cousins do I bring on board? Because they're all trying to get around that same age where like they're good to stand up. And then, like Chris, like you mentioned, there needs to be 10 to 15 girls to like complement that. I got to talk to my fiance and be like, hey, do you have 10 girls that you would want to ask to stand up? Maybe, she's only comfortable close enough to 5 of them. Or maybe she's like, actually, I have 30 girls. And then I'm like, oh, shit, do I have another 15 friends I got to find?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Chris, that's a good point. You got to make sure that you both have an equal number of friends. And I know you mentioned that they don't necessarily have to match. And I agree. It just does look a little weird sometimes when you have like someone walking up single or as like tripod, whatever, like trips.
Yeah. Where you have like either a guy with 2 ladies on his arms or vice versa. Hey, it can happen. But like if you have a lot of that, it could be a little weird.
Yeah, no, for sure. Chris, it's actually... like you mentioned, we've been at like weddings where you have huge bridal parties. Like I used to be a waiter back in the day, and I have seen weddings where you have 2 head tables just because the bridal party is so big. Yeah, I know. I was like, that's like half your guests are your bridal party. Like, what is this? It's just, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
Yeah, I think something that can help is maybe also like you can write down some names and think about who you want to be there. Like, who's your best man? And then you can kind of, tiers is the wrong way to think about it, but, just like circles, right? Of like people that of how close you are to certain people. And, if you invite one person, you have to think about like, does that mean I'm opening the door for like other people to be invited because I know them, via the same way, or I'm as close to them as that other person. Right. So you kind of have to like draw a line and maybe list some names out of where you think kind of everyone like lines up in this aspect.
Yeah. And this is also
it's kind of a weird thing, right?
Yeah. This is like starting the politics and just kind of like the considerations early. It's also a big thing with family. Like if you invite this first cousin, does that mean you invite all first cousins? Or if you invite like the second or third cousin, not as close, like how far do you extend that? Like where does that end?
Mm-hmm.
So these are all things you got to think about. And then, Chris, another thing to consider is like how much or how little is your, bridal party doing? Because if they have a lot of events, if you're going to put a lot on their back, you don't want guys that are flaky.
Yep.
Just going to put that out there.
And I think that leads right into something I want to maybe talk about right away is like the first person, right? Like the best man, whoever you pick as your best man. It could be someone that you're very close with, you've known them forever, and that's important and that's really nice. But you also want someone who's dependable, because a lot of times you're going to be asking them to do stuff for you. Whether it's different wedding activities, different planning. For different aspects like the bachelor party, you want someone who's solid, who's going to come through, and you know how to communicate and work together, because you're going to rely on that person to do a lot. And when you're asking, I think it's also important to kind of lay out what your expectations are to make sure they don't just say yes, of course. Everyone kind of has that knee-jerk reaction. It's kind of an honor to be asked. But there's a lot behind it that they might not realize, especially if they've never done it before or they're not married.
Yeah, no, Chris, that's actually a very good point. But I'm glad you brought up the best man, because we kind of skipped over this guy who is very important. Maybe we should talk about him a little bit. Yes, start before you even think about your bridal party. Start with, are you having a best man? And I know for me, being married in the Greek Orthodox Church, I need a kumbaro, right? Which is essentially your like witness to God. And so this person, it could be a man or a woman. For me, it was my cousin, it was a man. And this person has a lot they need to do, right? They need to be, part of a church. They need to be in good standing with the church. They need to get the Stefania, which is the crowns. They got to get the candles. They got to get a lot of like things that are needed for the actual ceremony itself. And during the wedding, they're the ones doing all the work, essentially. So this is someone that you have to be able to trust, that that they're going to, do a good job, do what you want. And then, Chris, for like when you're thinking about a best man, outside of the church, like there are also other things that you want them to do, like potentially, you mentioned it already, right? Plan a bachelor party, corral the guys together, so it's not just like a shit show, everyone going in like a million different directions. This is almost like a quarterback. As I'm talking about this, that's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah. It's going to be like a tortured metaphor, like, are you the head coach and they're the quarterback?
Honestly, yeah, kind of, right? Like, you do kind of go to them first,
Or it's like you're the quarterback and then they're like the center, right? Because they're they're also responsible for protecting you and communicating to everybody else. I don't know.
Yeah, at minimum, they're a captain, Probably on offense somewhere, right? They're definitely not on defense.
I mean, I have to say, like, I really kind of, learning about it's Kubaro, right?
Kubaro, yeah.
Yep. I love that idea because, it is kind of just like one person, right, that you're relying on. And it's kind of like that tradition. And it also takes kind of like the politics of like having to ask anybody else in a way. Like, no one else can really be offended unless they weren't asked to be, best man, basically. Mm-hmm. Which, everyone kind of has or knows like that one person who's going to be, the best man probably. There's probably a few situations where you're close with a lot of people and, you might have some hurt feelings there with that title. But, kind of just being forced to choose only one person is kind of nice, because then you can just be like, oh, I'm sorry, that's tradition.
This tradition, it's all I need. It's actually kind of funny because I had a conversation with so I did a kumbaro and then I also did best man, kind of like the Greek and American sides, whatever. The guy that I chose my best man, when he got married, he's like, Steve, listen, man, if I didn't have a brother, you'd be my best man. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've heard. Let's be honest. But if you do have a brother that's close in age, like, they automatically have a spot somewhere on that wedding party. And traditionally, a lot of times it is, that best man role. So like something else to consider.
Yeah. Again, it's a tough choice to whittle this list down. And there's always going to be maybe some hurt feelings. But what I'll say is like a good piece of advice is that there's like other roles within the wedding too. So like if you have to hit a certain number, but you have maybe one or two other people that you're thinking about that you want them included because they're important to you, there's like other roles that you can kind of give them within the wedding to kind of like make sure that they're involved, and you're still asking them to kind of have a role. A lot of weddings that I'm seeing on Instagram now have kind of like, instead of flower girls, or in addition to a flower girl, they have like the beer guys, right? That like walk down the aisle handing out alcoholic drinks and beers and kind of getting the party started a little bit, so you can get them involved, like maybe like that, do something funny or fun like that.
So wait, the beer guys, are these essentially the ushers?
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the traditional usher of just like, kind of like helping people find their seats and kind of get ready for the ceremony. There's just different things that you can do to like give other people a role to show that they're important to you, and something to consider.
Yeah, I know for us, so we just have two people, right? We have a best man and we have a kumbaro on my side, and then my wife, has two maids of honor, right? Just to kind of like even it out. And then we have my nephew. He's the ring bearer, but he's like 9 months at the point of this recording, like 10 months by the time the wedding happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to have my sister, so that she could be also part of the wedding in some way, bring him up with the rings. We're having my cousin be the officiant. And the officiant, if you're not doing a church wedding, right, this is for like our ceremony in Greece, right, after the church itself, just to kind of like something symbolic. If you're not having a church wedding, having, friends or family be the officiant is also like a huge honor. And Chris, I know that's something that you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our great mutual friends is going to be the officiant for our wedding. So, it was kind of, we wanted someone who knew who would take it seriously, because, it is hard work to like do that and to come up with, to do the research, right? They should already kind of know you both, but, you have to kind of like dig a little bit and like hear all the different stories and take the time to write the ceremony, write the speech, and kind of be a master of ceremonies. And it's not a small task, right? To keep everyone's attention, to keep things rolling, and to kind of I don't know, be the center of attention. You're managing a lot, right? You're managing time, you're managing the couple's emotions, you're managing the whole wedding party, and timing and everything. It's important to take that seriously and not just ask like someone who, again, is flaky. This is an important day for you, and that role is going to be, it's going to kind of make or break the ceremony in a way, right? I think we've all been maybe to a wedding or two where that person, whether it's a pastor, priest, or another officiant who didn't quite nail the job, and it can kind of linger, it can kind of last too long, and kind of get a little awkward depending on the situation. So just make sure you choose wisely.
Yeah, and I know Greg is going to kill it.
He's going to kill it.
He's going to do a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would think also, like, just again, I cannot stress enough, like, communication. So like, don't just like ask them and be like, okay, cool, like, see you on the wedding, right? Check in with them, have a regular conversation, see how they're feeling, make sure they've started writing everything that they're supposed to be writing, and just like kind of check in often to make sure things are on track.
Yeah. So, okay. So we have the best man, right? Which they're quarterback, captain, corralling all the guys. You have.
Let's see how many other positions we can get into this.
Oh my God, I know. Okay. You have the groomsmen, which honestly, groomsmen to me are the O-line, right? You have 5 or 7 guys, first line of defense, making sure your quarterback is safe and sound, which either you or, your best man, kind of telling people what to do. You have your ushers, your beermen, whatever you want to call them. I don't really know if these guys could be like wide receivers, honestly, because they're not that important.
It's an important role. I don't know.
I mean, I guess, but like wide receivers, but they put points on the board. I don't know if ushers.
The beer guys are probably the tight end. They're the fun loving guys who probably don't take things too seriously, right? They're not quite a O lineman. They're not quite a wide receiver. They're just there to have a good time and get the ball like 2 times a game.
That's true. And then is your officiant going to be what? Your running back, the workhorse? The all reliable, always
all reliable. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, Mog's not here, but we're still keeping on the sports analogies.
So who are you taking first in the wedding fantasy football draft?
Oh, but that's dumb, because you never take a quarterback first, but you need a best man. So like it's not a good parallel. But yeah, okay. So you have all those guys. On the young cousins front or the nieces and nephews, right? You have your flower girls are an easy one, you know. Ring bearers, also easy one. Chris, another thing that I'm noticing people doing, and we're gonna probably ask my dad or mom, is like say a prayer, during the service or ceremony if you're like religious at all, or maybe like a blessing, right? If you're not religious, but still kind of like spiritual in some way.
That's another great role that you can incorporate, and it kind of gives you some flexibility because there's not like a set number, right? Like it can be 1, it can be 3 or 4 if you want it to be. Like have someone do a reading or a blessing is a great way to incorporate them into the wedding. It doesn't have to be very long, 60 seconds. It can be longer, but a great way to get someone else involved.
Just real quick, when you say there's no time constraint, technically true. Keep it short. Our wedding was it's a Greek wedding. Greek weddings are on the longer side. They're like an hour and a half, depending on the priest's pace. But if you're doing like have an officiant, if you can keep that to like 30 minutes, 40 on the long side, that's like the limit of people's attention generally for these things.
Especially if it's like outside and you have other demands. Yeah. Like a 30-minute, 25, 30 minutes is kind of like the right amount of time. Beyond 30, you're running a little bit long, and you don't want it to be 10 minutes, but between 20 and 30 minutes is kind of that sweet spot is what I would say.
Yeah. So you have that's during the ceremony. And then during the reception, you could also have people do speeches, which is also a great honor, right? Give it to people that are going to kill it, that you have like a lot of history to draw on, that they can like say something like nice and good. And that also, like honors people and lets them, honor you back, right? Because they love you. They're all there for you.
Yeah, and I think that's what everyone has to kind of remember at the end of the day is, there might be some feelings you have to manage, some emotions you have to manage with people either being chosen or not chosen or having a specific role or not. But at the end of the day, people should be there to support you, love you, and either if that means just not having an official role or, standing next to you, right? People should be there because they love you, and that's why you invited them in the first place. So, just try to remember that. I mean, some of the conversations might be awkward, but at the end of the day, they're all going to be there to support you. So it's going to be fine.
Yeah. And as we're actually talking about this, I'm realizing that in all things, having not enough is always better than having too much. Not enough would be not enough speeches. Let's say maybe you had time for one more versus like having 1 or 2 speeches too many, right? Because people remember when things drag. And they remember when they're having a good time, they wish they had one more. That builds anticipation. So what I'm kind of getting at is if you have an option between a big or a smaller bridal party, I think having a smaller will be better. If you have an option between like, a ton of speeches versus a few speeches, having a few speeches would probably be better. You don't want to be here
shorter is better. Get everyone to that cocktail hour as soon as possible.
Oh my God. Short and sweet. Exactly.
Everyone there wants to party.
Party for you, for you and the drinks. But there are also things to do at the cocktail hour, Chris, aren't there?
Well, our activity during the cocktail hour is going to be taking a boatload of photos. So we're going to try to hit a lot of family photos during that time. And then we're also going to be like running across the street and, taking pictures outside because it's going to be summertime in Chicago next to a park. So it's going to be really nice. But we have a lot to do in that hour.
Yeah.
So if we come back a little sweaty, you'll know why.
Yeah, sweaty because we just kept drinking, obviously, just making it work. But yeah, no, after that, are you doing a mother-son dance?
We are, yes. Nice. We'll kick that off, and then there'll be a daddy-daughter dance, and then kind of our dance.
That's going to be so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are also things you can do with your family, to like honor them. One other thing, Chris, that we're doing, well, we're trying to see if we have time, is having like some kind of mini memorial for like family that unfortunately like aren't able to be there, that we've lost, just to kind of like, remember them as well. Are you guys doing anything similar?
Yeah, we're going to have like a in memoriam table, just like with photos and everything during the cocktail hour, just to kind of recognize the people that, we lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So like there, there's ways to find, family like stuff to do. And if you are going to do that, just remember like how important it is and how likely this family member is to do like a good or a bad job. Like definitely consider that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I'm just kind of like thinking through it, and like you're probably having a lot more family involved in your wedding as being part of it and speaking and everything versus mine, because like I am the baby of the family by 10 by at least 10 years, and 15 from the eldest, and so like everyone's kind of in a much different stage of life, and so it's like mostly like relying on friends versus like family, because there was not a whole lot of cousins and everyone's like much older than me.
What I will say that's good about getting married, like destination wedding, is people just don't have the same expectations of being involved as opposed to like when it's here.
They're there for nice. They are there for vacation, right?
They are definitely there for a good time. That's for sure. And hey, I'm there to give it, But yeah, can you think of any other, kind of things you can find for people to do, how to involve them?
I'm trying to really scratch my brain here and think about it. I'm sure there's a lot that we're forgetting.
Yeah, but I feel like they're like got to be like small, maybe like specific cultural like things, But like these are the big ones at weddings that you can like.
Those are the traditional ones, yeah. I'm sure you can find all sorts of ones. Like we're doing a tea ceremony too, so like if we needed to, like we could call someone else up, like to like hold the set and like help pour the tea and like be involved in that regard, right? Like if we needed to. So that's a good call.
Yes. So there are ways, to involve family. But before you do, just make sure that, they're a good fit. They're not flaky. And they're not gonna just pad your wedding out for the sake of padding your wedding out. Because I mean, we've all been to weddings where you have that one person just going on and on and on, can't stop crying. You can't like understand a word they're saying, and it just drags, and they're just waiting. You're hungry, you're thirsty, you're running out of dance time. just all these things because they just won't stop with their speech. And it's like the fifth speech that you've heard already. You're like, okay.
And I think the switching tracks just a little bit, I think the other part you can have fun with though is like telling everybody, right? Like it should be a fun time. So like you can give like little gifts or little surprises and, to like formally ask them to be a part of your wedding. So have some fun with that, obviously everything adds to the budget, right? But like, have some fun with it. Send them a little something. It could be kind of fun that way.
Yeah, like groomsmen gifts. Everyone's favorite. Chris, how many old-fashioned glasses have you gotten?
A lot. Old-fashioned glasses, decanters. That's the standard go-to.
I mean, they're useful, right? Yep. I'll always find a use for an old-fashioned glass. But yeah, Chris, I think that's all I got on how to get people involved, how to put them as part of the wedding.
Yeah, have fun with it. Again, every wedding is going to be a little unique, so you can probably find roles for those people that you maybe can't have as part of the official wedding party for various reasons. Probably usually just due to numbers, right? Mm-hmm. You can't have everybody up there, but be creative, have fun with it. At the end of the day, it's your wedding, so it doesn't need to conform to kind of any traditional, thought or design of what you think a wedding should be. Have some fun, do something a little different.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's your wedding. Do what you like. Fulfill your vision, right? Yeah, with that, Chris, I think that brings us to the end of this episode. But guys, we've been talking about this. Next week, Chris, I think we're going to finally talk about the bachelor party.
Dun, dun, dun. Now it's the good stuff.
Okay, just real quick. This is why you needed to put in a good best man.
Yep.
So that the bachelor party is a great bachelor party.
It's 10 out of 10, exactly. 10 out of 10. Also, ladies, you're not allowed to listen to the next episode, so just skip over it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a filter if you're female. Spotify will just not play this episode. I'm joking. I can't do that, but yeah, Chris, I'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye.